This is Dr. Sean Benzinger for SecondOpinion.org, and our interview today, or our seminar today, is back, muscle, and joint pain with a special twist. The first part of it that we're going to be discussing is in its relationship to stress. For those that have not picked up any of our DVDs before, the whole idea is to educate you and teach you how to take care of yourself better. The first angle, again, is related to stress with the back, muscle, and joint pain. If you have not registered for our newsletter, please do. There's also up to 13 different seminars such as these that you can pick up at the office or eventually through our website so that you might be able to educate yourself at home. Again, the purpose is to hopefully help you be able to do some things at home of understanding your disease process and hopefully, God willingly, prevent some of the conditions that we deal with day after day. So let's get into back pain, but we're going to deal with the idea of stress. We use a model that's called Selye's General Adaptation Syndrome. Alarm phase, stage of resistance, and stage of exhaustion. Because the truth is, until you understand what's inducing your stress and what isn't inducing your stress, you can frankly spend a huge amount of time wasting money as well as effort at doctors' offices by just not maintaining or taking care of a key issue that might be inducing your problem in the first place, which is overwhelming stress that finally gives you back pain. Okay? Let's talk about phase one. It's an all or nothing effect. It's kind of like the muscles. It's a full contraction. Whenever you end up with a all or nothing general adaptation phase, you end up having some type of shock to your condition or to your body. That can happen chemically because you drink 37 Diet Cokes, or it can happen from an argument from your spouse or a friend or a family member or a loss or something along that line. It can happen from marriage. It can happen from having a child. It can be happening with a child that's tough to deal with. It can happen from spraining your ankle. It can happen from over-medicating yourself. It can happen from anything. In other words, stress in any form that overwhelms your body can induce this general adaptation syndrome, an all or nothing body response. Here's the whole point. I try to let people know that the idea of having a single condition, hardly ever, except for right when you come out of the womb possibly, is almost an impossibility because the body reacts as a unit to fight against conditions, symptoms, and diseases. So keep that in mind. The idea of cutting up the body parts into a back pain and a neck problem and a liver problem and a big toe problem and an autoimmune-based problem is almost impossible. The whole body is affected, some cases very directly, some cases indirectly, but guaranteed it's happening. So first thing is in phase one is there's a shock. There's a psychological or physiological effect to the body. And here's the response, no matter where it comes from. I hope we've gotten that clear. An enlarged adrenal cortex. What is that? That's your anti-inflammatory, inflammatory response in the body. Number two, your nervous system. You kind of just get this excitement, this immediate, and that can happen from being overly excited. That's what they call the adrenal high, the adrenal push. That's the fight or flight when you've sprained an ankle. We've read stories of people getting their their limbs ripped off or breaking their legs and still persisting through because somehow they just don't feel that pain. This is an inflammatory response, a fight and flight response, period. Remember, it can happen from almost any cause. And every one of us are individuals. Every one of us have different causes that induce it. Shrank thymus. In other words, your immune system actually shrivels down. We also notice that it also affects not only just the thymus, but also the spleen. Your immune system actually has a problem. In other words, you're more susceptible to getting sick during these reactions that can come from any cause, and everyone's different as to which one will cause it more often than you. And decreased body fluids. For some reason, you get on the scale and all of a sudden you look down and you go, wow, I'm like 3 to 5 pounds lighter. You can't even figure out why. Haven't done anything different. You just are. Here's the worst part. A week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, all of a sudden you got the same 3 to 5 pounds back, maybe even plus an extra pound or two, and you get all depressed about it. Guess what probably happened? You probably had a gas, a general adaptation syndrome, an all or nothing reaction in your body. Something has pushed you over the edge. So just know that, okay? The pancreatic reaction, blood sugars elevate during this time when you've had this kind of a reaction. And here's a key factor, okay? the ulcers or their stomach and the small intestine, the intestinal tract itself, actually has some bleeding that occurs. It's interesting that the lining itself will kind of crack and bleed a little bit. And think about it. I sprained my ankle. How can my stomach bleed, doc? It's because your body goes into this general adaptation reaction, not depending on the cause, but this is what's going to happen. That's why when somebody gets diabetes or has heart conditions or has whatever, just give them enough time. They're going to get all kinds of other conditions. Eventually, they start getting condition after condition after condition. And that's frankly our fault. We have spent way too much time trying to educate you as to isolating a reason, take this special thing and it takes it all away. That doesn't happen, folks. In fact, it's not working, and that's why we're doing seminars such as this. Remember, this is back pain related to how stress affects you. And you see from this picture that you kind of look at what organ systems are involved. Hormones are involved big time in this situation. The thyroid's involved, the adrenal glands, we've already mentioned that, the pancreas, ovaries, pituitary, testes are involved, as well as the pancreas, liver, heart, etc., etc. Okay? So let's go into phase 2. Stage of resistance. Adaptation appears to be complete. In other words, whatever has occurred, you've gotten your feelings hurt, somebody has offended you, the boss that demeans you on a consistent basis, etc., 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 whatever was causing your general adaptation syndrome, usually then the hormones will start to level out. An anti-inflammatory response is now occurring full body to try to protect you. An inflammatory response might be happening locally. Stay with the ankle, okay? The ankle sprain, you still got this big balloon down there, and now we're waiting for the swelling to go down. Remember we lost the 3 to 5 pounds temporarily? Guess what? You just got it back. The swelling and gains from weight and insulin push that has occurred from your pancreas starts now increasing your fluid retention to try to help fight further damage and disease, okay? Finally, let's look at it kind of looks like the last stage is kind of like the first stage of your body now has went through this adaptation. Remember, it can be from anything. I mean, I had my time of the month and I drink 13 Diet Cokes, eat 4 pounds of chocolate, etc., etc. Let me tell you, you're inducing every time a general adaptation syndrome. Here's the worst part of it. It makes you age. It creates wear and tear on those cell tissue that is most of the time permanent, and it advances your aging process. Why do you think some people are at 47, they're at 77, they look like they're 47? Now, there are genetic aberrations that are beneficial. That does happen. Usually it's lifestyles that seem to make it so that they just seem to deal better with stress. They have went through the same hell that you have went through, but for some reason their reaction to this situation is different. Now let's say that we're doing it by a bad diet, constantly labeling a bad diet, and your body just finally, after a lot of stress, a lot of hours, and a bad diet, eventually it finally gets you. And you go through this general adaptation syndrome. What's interesting is most of the time when people get recurrent back problems, recurrent neck problems, and when we talk to them, they usually have went through some stressful event, some that they will share, some that they won't share. But the point is they usually have went through this because remember, during this time, they get this huge inflammatory response in the body which can create headaches, neck pain, low back pain, etc., etc., etc. Does that make sense? But every time you have one of these general adaptation syndromes, every time you go through these recurrent disease processes, guess what? You're aging. You're increasing your aging process. That's why some people are 77, but they don't act 77, they don't look 77, and they seem to function much better than 77, okay? If the stress reappears, your immune system's already low. Why do you think during Christmas, let's start back at Thanksgiving. At Thanksgiving is about the time that we start stuffing in our mouths lots of really bad food. We just do. It's kind of our right as Americans. It's Thanksgiving time, we start with the pumpkin pies, and then all of a sudden we start with the Christmas party and the drinking thing on the weekends and seeing all our friends, and we're out during the week, and it's highly stressful because it's financially very tough on most family units. Whether you celebrate or not, some reason it seems to hurt the finances. Everyone else is stressed. It's a very difficult time for most people during this time. And the thing that you have to keep in mind during this process is, frankly, your immune system is really low. Then we go through Christmas, then we go through New Year's, New Year's, And by that time, we have shoved so much sugar, so much alcohol, so much stress into our system. Guess what? When we get the sickest? January, February, March. Is it just because it's winter? I don't think so, folks. I find a lot of people that either don't celebrate those holidays or have those major swings in the way that they eat and the way that they live, for some reason don't seem to get as sick as often. I've been in practice 24 years. I have seen this pattern. Now that stress that reappears, you can get sicker easier. Your glands have an increased activity. They are really hypersensitive, so allergies, asthmatic attacks, and things like that seem to go up. But the organs are very sluggish, so if you really go out and pound them down on a Friday night, probably your liver is going to be more sluggish because it's just went through a general adaptation syndrome. It's not completely returned back to normal, even though you feel normal, and it can't handle activity of alcohol consumption to that level, or going back to doing the same thing. Lots of chocolate, lots of junk food, lots of McDonald's, lots of whatever. Your system just can't handle it, and we end up with problems. Some people have nervous breakdowns. Just can't handle any more put-downs from the spouse or the boss or life itself, or not enough money at the end of the bills at the end of the month. It just gets to you. Nervous breakdown. Some people just toss in their cookies and just split. Eventually this stuff gets to you if you don't find a way to adapt to it, understand it, and have better coping mechanisms to deal with it. Here's the point. It doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, everybody has stress. Let's get out of our mind the idea that, oh, they've got all the money in the world, that's why. No, no, no. They're dealing with the same thing. They got kids that pass away. They got deaths in the family. They got spouses that aren't nice. They got bosses that aren't nice. They might even be the boss and they're not nice to themselves. That's the whole point. The entire hormone system is involved in this general adaptation syndrome. So during ovulation, period times, and stuff like that, many times your symptoms are much worse than normal if you're in a period of high stress, or you just don't get periods. It's kind of interesting. Cellier's general adaptation syndrome says that phase 1 and phase 2 can occur simultaneously depending on how fatigued and how much you've run yourself down. But in phase 3, it can occur throughout stressful events, several times in one event. In other words, it just keeps happening and happening. You ever seen that things happen in threes? Well, many times they do. And you get hit and hit and hit. Why do you think you have neck pain and headaches and back pain, etc.? Now, we have true injuries that do occur, but we're dealing with this one aspect of recurrent back problems that make you susceptible. I'm telling you, I have this gentleman that, a very smart man, works in the banking industry and was getting worse. About his back problems that started 10, 15 years ago were getting more frequent, more frequent, more frequent, more frequent. I knew he was in a high-stress job, really pushing himself in good fitness, worked out hard, did lots of good things, but his diet wasn't quite right, and I knew that his nutrient levels, there were certain things that I had big question marks, and I said, now listen, once this gets to where you don't get past 6 months without a recurrence, then you're mine. I get to work on you nutritionally. Let's see what happens. Guess what? Since the time we've gotten his nutrition in order so far, thank God, he has not had a back blowout since. I think he's even amazed that that occurred, but it's now finally made sense that chemically over a period of time when we're nutritionally unfit, we can predispose ourselves to conditions that we're weakened for some reason, okay? So multiple stimulations build up to blow out the body, repetitive injuries. Okay, we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this and we're doing this at our job until finally this thing can't handle it and you end up with a stress reaction syndrome and you get general inflammation. It takes you months to be able to get back into work. Listen, that happens. And in the fast-paced world that we have, we just don't have enough time to heal from one gas to the next. And before we're dealing with one, we got another one, and that is half the problem. We're not farmers. 92% of the population were farmers 100 years ago. Sometimes you could just go out and take a break for a week or two when you weren't farming because you had a break. Harmful stress, we have to realize, was determined only after you have this gas. In other words, you're going to have to figure out what is your key kicker, the stressful thing that hurts you the most. It could be a spouse or a child that just doesn't respect you, is unkind to you. It could be that you get up in the morning and you start off with those Pop-Tarts and you never give up. I mean, you're going to Starbucks and then it's McDonald's and da-da-da-da-da. And we know statistically, take your kids to McDonald's 2 or more times a week and you are making them highly susceptible to disease processes. Don't do it. Please don't do it. I know we're talking about back pain, but I had to get that in. Remember, it's an all or nothing response. Whatever stimulates you and gets you there, it's all your symptoms are going to get worse. So if you're susceptible to sinuses, susceptible to back problems, susceptible to knee, susceptible to being depressed, susceptible to being unhappy, susceptible to just being a miserable cow, guess what? Whatever pushes you over the edge, your most likely symptoms will come out to haunt you again, no matter what the cause. So here we go. We go out in the sun too much, we get too much of a burn. Guess what? We might end up with back pain. Interesting. Or we might get depressed. Not because we were in the sun, but simply because the sun was too much. We burned ourselves, our skin couldn't handle it, and it was damaging to our body. Sound, really loud noises. Spiritual. There is there is spiritual warfare that does occur, and it can occur in your life. Mental trauma and biochemical. Biochemical is one of the more common ones, that the environment itself constantly eats at us until finally we have problems and breaks us down. So it can be a local area of repetitive irritation, okay? A individual, a specific diet item that you constantly are putting in, like 32 ounces of diet soda every day, that has a really high acid level that's very hard on your stomach and digestive patterns. Or you just won't eat enough protein because you're going to make sure that you don't eat animals, and you don't know enough about being a vegetarian, and you keep your protein levels down until you end up with a stress reaction, a deficiency, an overwhelming thing that ends up causing the rest of the body to have a problem. See what I mean? Lots of other things can cause it. How about lack of sleep? Lack of sleep over a period of time repetitively can eventually send you into a stress reaction. Anger. Lack of forgiveness, something you play over and over and over in your mind. Here's something to keep in mind, okay? And we'll kind of get off of some of this issue, but I think this is really, really important. You've had a bad event in your life, let's say, and you replay it and replay it and replay it and replay it, okay? You just can't let it go. In fact, you're one that just doesn't forgive people. I tell people the reason why you forgive people is for you, not for them. The reason why is because then you can move on and not let what they've done, said, or whatever to you end up ruining the rest of your day or your life. The point of it is replaying it, because everybody else doesn't know what's happening, doesn't mean it's not hurting you. A lack of forgiveness is a big issue, and it builds anger and it torments the rest of your system. But every time you replay that, your body reacts as though you are going through the event again of that verbal abuse or that physical abuse or whatever you went through. Every time you replay it. So get counseling, talk to somebody, work on it, forgive them so that you can forgive yourself and move on with your life. Okay? Local irritation can stimulate the entire body into a problem. Again, I find that diet is a major issue, emotional duress, lack of forgiveness, and just being kind to yourself and getting enough sleep can make all kinds of difference. Okay? So we got diet, too much sugar, too much caffeine, excessive carbs, fats, or proteins. Preservatives, dyes, or poisons, such as mercury, can cause a problem for you, or allergic foods. It is way too often that I have to take people off of key food groups, and for some reason, in general, their health seems to get better. They lose some weight. They don't swallow as much. Why? They have real problems with eating peanuts constantly that has lots of fungus in them, and cheese and breads, and we knock out those three things and all the caffeines, we get them walking a little bit and they're eating more fruits and vegetables. Guess what? All of a sudden they lose all this water weight and they feel good about it. But because they just don't lose it all in 2 months, they start tossing in the towel. So allergic foods are something to look at. And if you were allergic to something when you were a child, just knock it out when you're an adult. Just because the doc says, well, it doesn't seem like you're throwing up anymore, your body might still be having some mild allergic effect that you don't see that causes retention of fluids and weight gain that you don't know about, okay? Or even depression. I've seen that happen. Excessive drug use, excessive alcohol use, MSG. I cannot tell you enough how to stay away from MSG. MSG right now is being put in, right now MSG was mandated to be taken out of children's foods because of this wonderful MD's work called John Olney. He went in front of the Congress 8 straight years to finally prove the point that MSG can cause some neurologic issues. Because there was a big question mark as to MSG, we didn't want our children being fed baby food that had MSG. And guess what they did? They made them take it out. Interesting enough, if you look at certain types of vitamins, Flintstones, and you look at them, you'll find that MSG is one of the products in it. Should you be giving your child that? The answer is no. If it has dyes in it, should you give it to them? No. At secondopinion.org, you'll start seeing educational seminars that I'll give in 5-minute snippets of vitamin A and the sources you should get it in, and vitamin C and the sources that you should get it in, and it will hopefully start helping you get a better view of what you should be giving your child. Excitotoxins such as synthetic sugars, genetically modified fruits and vegetables, those are a consideration that you need to go. Mostly soy products, by the way. And if you haven't gotten our seminar on foods and things, please make sure you do. Detergents, cleaning products for some people, such as me, it creates a problem. And women, makeup. Put it right on your skin. It's highly absorbable and can create a chemical effect that's unhealthy for you. So it might be just the things that you're using. And if you look into www.secondopinion.org and look up the skin type solution that was done by Dr. Leslie Bauman, I think you'll find great information in that area for you. And remember, this is an entire body effect. Stress, related to back pain, but is it related to everything else? The answer is absolutely. Physiologically, mood and food. Sweets, fatty, salty, all can increase your mood and calming opiates. So in other words, that's why we might crave those things. And if we eat better foods and end up doctoring them up with healthy fats, healthy sweets, and healthy types of salts, maybe we might be able to do something to help ourselves. Mental beatings, anxiety, rerunning the same negative events, punishing yourself for the past issues, having a pity party for yourself, eventually that's got to go away, or otherwise you're going to create the same thing that causes over and over this damaging side effect called stress and back pain. Physiological, hot, cold, weather cycles. If there's a 20 to 30 degree change in weather cycles, you're going to find that there's some tendency towards being really tired and getting more achy and sore. Excessive noise, the kid's just driving you crazy. Ionization radiation, X-ray, atomic explosions, reactor accidents, food irradiation. You don't even know that they're irradiating with ionizing radiation to kill off bacteria and virus, and they don't even have to mark it in your food groups. So physical stressors can occur. Okay? Focus of today was back pain in relationship to stressors. So we can have outside stressors that constantly reoccur that causes us to be predisposed to back pain, headaches, and fibromyalgia types of symptoms. So understanding the stress reaction syndrome is the first thing I wanted to get done with today's seminar, and I hope this helps you. And if you want more information, the office has it. You know where we're located. Secondopinion.org will have 60 authors with interviews with those authors, with articles supporting this information, training and educational process of nutrients, homeopathics, herbals, things that you can start using at home that are safe. Stop getting scared of the vitamins and mineral thing. They don't kill people. It's hard to hurt anybody with nutrients. Stop being afraid of it. And then the doctors, unfortunately, that are telling you not to do it, over 67% of them are still taking nutrients themselves but telling you not to. So let's get over the nutrient thing, but get our seminar on that. It'll wake you up, and then finally you'll feel like you're on some solid ground and know that certain things are safe and certain things aren't, and you'll know what to stay away from in the alternative healthcare field. So we know that stress of all types can induce back pain. And that was the reason for today's seminar. We want to thank you for joining us today. We pray that today was encouraging, that there's a basis of you being able to go forward and say, hey, if I clear up some of these other things, maybe I'll stop getting these recurrent headaches a little bit. There's lots of steps that we'll be teaching you, and this is just one of them. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, signing up for our free newsletter. You'll know all the new information that's coming on the website. And if you don't have a computer and you don't have access to the website, just remember that you can call our office, and we usually will have copies of these things that we can get out to you for very, very inexpensively. Okay? Focus is saving lives. Share this information with others and make a difference. Thank you for tuning in. We'll look for you next time on our next seminar series. May God bless you.